Hello there, and welcome to Dry Eye Girlfriend, the podcast where beauty, wellness, and science come together in the most eye-opening way. I'm Angela, your advocate, wellness enthusiast, and go-to girlfriend for all things dry eye. Sure, there's plenty of science and medical jargon out there, but where is the real talk? I created this show to raise awareness, share practical solutions, and bring you episodes with global experts, holistic health pros, industry insiders, and women just like you who are navigating the same journey. We talk about everything from nutrition and skincare to the most up-to-date science in dry eye. Because when we start connecting the dots between lifestyle and eye health, everything starts to get a whole lot clearer. Let's get into it. Hi there. And today I want to just quickly introduce you to an amazing guest that I have. Dr. Mila Ioussifova said yes to the podcast, and I'm so excited to have you here. Just to get things started, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, what brought you to, dry eye as a specialty, the nutrition training you've done, and the functional medicine that you've done as well?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, for inviting me. And I'm so impressed by how perfectly you pronounce my last name. That's not easy. Most people
Yeah.
butcher it. So, yes, a little bit about myself. I practice in Portland, Oregon. I've been practicing for 18 years, which is always crazy when I say it out loud because,
Mhm.
I'm not that old. But I have a private practice in Portland, Oregon that I co-started in 2012, and it's 2013 actually. It's 2 years old, 12 years old now, and it's from year two of opening the practice. I knew that. I mean, I was doing dry eye before that, but I was really just doing the bare minimum. I was doing the warm compresses and
Mhm.
artificial tears and some pharmaceuticals, but I really wasn't treating it at root cause. So from year two, I started to invest into a lot of the more advanced technologies and treatments in office procedures and really wanted to understand the root cause. And
Mhm.
what really got me passionate and really interested in it is I'm a dry eye sufferer. I have MGD. My mom
Mhm.
also she has Sjogren's, so she has the aqueous deficiency dry eye and evaporative dry eye. And
Well, what were
also
you saying earlier? Sorry to cut you off, but we were talking and you're like, basically everyone has dry eye until proven otherwise.
I know we were chatting
Uh,
earlier, and it's how we were just walking around, and we can diagnose our friends and family just by
yeah.
symptoms, right? But what I think is everybody has dry eye until proven otherwise. So this is
Mhm.
why I'm screening every single patient, both on the questionnaire part, like just asking specific questions, and we're doing my biography, looking at my meibomian glands on every single patient, young or old. And unfortunately, we're seeing gland dropouts on our young population, young patients.
Just for the listeners that don't know, can you just explain meibomian glands, where they're located, kind of how many, what's a good healthy gland? I don't think we've actually had this conversation.
Absolutely. So, meibomian glands are sebaceous type of glands. So, they're oil producing glands. We have sebaceous glands on our skin. So, these are type of sebaceous glands that are located on our eyelids. So, basically, they're vertically oriented on the top and bottom eyelids, and the openings of the glands are at the lid margins, like right where you would be waterlining, right? Your makeup. So, that's where the
Mhm.
openings of the glands are, which is why it's so important when we talk to our patients who wear makeup and cosmetics on how to properly apply it, what kind of products to do, and I know you get into it with one of your other guests in great detail, but essentially, what we do on a daily basis can affect how these glands are functioning. And the way the role of the glands is when we blink, and that's another important thing that I'll come back to, how we
Mhm.
blink. So when we blink, that stimulates these glands, and they have tiny little muscles around them, and they contract, and the oil comes out of the glands. But we have to have a nice full blink. The top and bottom eyelids have to come into contact for that oil to come out of the glands, and then the oil coats the surface of the eye, and that makes up the outermost layer of the tear film. So our tear film is made out of three layers, although the Deuce 3 now says we have two layers. So we have the lipid layer and then aqueous and mucin layer, kind of a together kind of layer, or there's there's not a clear separation of those layers. But essentially, we have lipid, and then you have aqueous, and then we have mucin on the inner
Mhm.
layer, and that's what kind of smooths out the tears on the surface. But the lipid layer is what keeps the tears from evaporating. It's sitting on the outside of the water, right? It makes sense.
Mhm.
Oil keeps water intact, and that's the key component. And most dry eye, I don't know, it's been said like 86% of all dry eye is evaporative. So majority of dry eye, what we see, in fact, even those with autoimmune conditions that have
Uh-huh.
aqueous deficiency, I've never seen an aqueous deficiency dry eye without the evaporative component. So it's often that they have both. So if they have Sjogren's, lupus, or other autoimmune condition, rheumatoid arthritis, big one, they're definitely going to have aqueous deficiency, but most likely they also have evaporative dry eye as well. So these glands they play a huge role on keeping our tears from evaporating and our eyes comfortable so we don't feel that gritty, sandy feeling. Our eyelids are not
Mhm.
scraping over the cornea when we're blinking. The eyelids should be like gliding over this tear film when we blink, right?
Mhm.
And we blink 12,000 times a day. So if that
Yeah.
evaporative layer, if the tear film is too thin because it's evaporating so fast, imagine, the lid just going over the cornea over and over and doesn't have that nice cushioning.
I feel it as you're saying it. My eye my
I
eyes
you feeling that,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm feeling exactly what you're saying right now. The grittiness. I need more of what you're gonna talk about from a nutrition standpoint too.
Yeah, yeah, and this is, so what I was gonna mention is that so many people have meibomian gland changes. I mean, and let's not
Mhm.
say dysfunction yet, but changes in their glands in their, I mean, teens now, right? Even younger
Mhm.
kids. So that's happening silently for many, many years. So if we're not looking for it, if we're not doing meibography, if we're not pushing on the eyelids, looking at the quality of the oil, then we are not addressing or catching this disease until it's symptomatic. And that may be in their 30s, 40s, 50s, right? So like
Mhm.
you could have this silent, we've been so good about detecting glaucoma because it's a silent disease. We know that patients won't have symptoms until it's
Mhm.
advanced disease. So we're shifting this. We're not thinking of dry eye, or hopefully we're not. I know that I'm not thinking of dry eye as something that's a nuisance, something that's a mild thing, because I know how it can affect patients, how debilitating it can be. So I'm looking for those early silent signs early on when patients have no symptoms, because I want to talk to them about lifestyle, about nutrition, about what they can do to prevent this. And I love that you asked this from Dr. Richard Maharaj when you said
Mhm.
about, and he hit it all, right? Like all the stuff that he said. I was like, yes, Richard. But it's the things that we could do early on, those lifestyle changes, whether it's stress management, nutrition, how we're using our eyes, how we're resting our eyes, how often we're
Mhm.
resting, and how mindful we are about, yes, things in general, but also, taking those blinks and being careful about how we apply cosmetics.
100%. You couldn't have said that better, and I think it kinda touches on, like, what the misconceptions are out there with dry eye, and it comes down to you there it's asymptomatic. You may not know you have it, so it's that important to go in and get these tests that you're talking about to make sure that you're catching it early on before it is symptomatic, because we can talk about this more too, but just when it gets to that point and your quality of life is affected, it can have detrimental effects, right? So I love that. And then from a passion for nutrition, where did that come from? Tell me more about, you going back to school and learning more about that kind of gut and, eye connection.
So, when I started doing all these, I mean, I started doing IPL like 8 years ago. We start adding all these. I mean, we literally do every single dry eye treatment in our office. We do in-office blood draws and make autologous serum and PRP. So I'm treating dry eye at a high level, right? But then there's still patients that were not getting better, and there's still something was just still missing. And I knew that there's a bigger connection to diet and lifestyle, but I I wanted to understand it at a deeper level. I wanted to understand how I can, instead of giving like a blanket recommendation to every single person, like how do I individualize it? How do I personalize my approach to whether it's diet, supplements, lifestyle changes, and understanding like the root cause of your dry eye and why it's different from the next patient. So I started really diving into it, and I've been a member of the Ocular Wellness and Nutrition Society for over 10 years since actually, yeah, pretty much after my residency, I joined. So for your listeners, if they're interested in learning about nutrition on the ocular surface and just in general ocular disease and nutrition, I highly recommend that you join their membership. I'm on the board of OWN, so I think you get a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of information, webinars and things like that. But that's where I got started. It was interested, but then I learned that I could actually go a little bit more. I could do a little bit more, and they gave they were partnered with University of Western States, which is it's a naturopathic school, but they have human nutrition functional medicine masters, program that we're able to take as owns. I mean, you pay for it, but you're able to kind of do the didactic part of that, and then be qualified to take a board exam to become a certified nutrition specialist through the ANA, American Nutrition Association. It was not an easy path. It took me like 4 years. It doesn't have to be, but I was, I'm a full-time practitioner. I lecture, so I took my time getting through it. So it took me 4 years. You had to do 1,000 of clinical hours working with a supervisor. I had to show cases of patients that I was doing certain, nutritional programs, doing certain, protocols and how that was affecting their. It was all related to dry eye. So you work with a supervisor, and then you take a board exam, which was like a 4-hour exam. So it was like being back in school
Intense.
essentially. But
Yeah.
so Owens actually has a different similar thing, but for practitioners. So you could do it more condensed. There are definitely other ways of getting, if you're interested in really becoming a certified nutrition practitioner, you can, again, through OWNS, you can achieve that. There's resources, and they're partnered with ANA, and you can do it much shorter, much more tailored, much more focused, path. But it just gives you the confidence and knowledge to talk to your patients about, hey, there is a connection. It's not just a
Mhm.
right? So let's talk about that. And so many times you see patients, the light bulb goes off. They're like, oh yeah, I've been feeling lousy. Like this started when that happened. I got sick. I had COVID, and then I had all these gut problems after that. And then my eyes were miserable. That's right.
Mhm.
Like you're almost like making the connections for the patients, and they see it, and they're motivated to, all right, I want to help my eyes, obviously, but I also want to feel better. Like I haven't had good sleep, good energy, all those things. My hair's falling out. Like, so you start to make the connections, and they understand that, okay, this is a one organ that's telling me something's wrong, but there's other
Mhm.
things going on, and the light bulb goes on, and not every patient is gonna be ready to make changes, but majority of patients, they are ready, and that's the thing. Like, as you know, patients with dry eye, they are sufferers. It
Mhm.
could be debilitating for some patients. They go on disability. They just feel lousy. And it's when you're addressing the root cause, when you're actually talking about the dysfunctions of something that potentially causing these symptoms, then we're not just going to improve one organ. We're going to address multi-organ systems here.
That's so incredible that you went back and learned about nutrition from, a root cause standpoint because so many doctors, they only get so much training in nutrition and it's such a big part of what your patient is going through. So that's incredible that you offer that to your patients. And you touched on it a lot here too. There's this gut eye connection, there's like an immune eye connection and a brain eye connection. And so many of those things matter when you're looking at that individual. Can you walk us through what that looks like, that gut eye connection from like a microbiome standpoint potentially with ocular surface disease?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is no surprise, right? It's not surprising that there is gut eye axis because we've learned about gut brain axis, gut skin axis, and we've known about like the majority of our immune cells are in our gut. So really what happens in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. Like it affects the rest of our body. But going like if we really want to dive into, we know that our microbiome is made out of trillions of microorganisms. We have bacteria, viruses, and protozoa, like, etc. So they are. So if we sort of put them in a category, there's the good bugs, the commensal bacteria, and there's the bad bugs, pathogenic bacteria. And in the perfect, when we have a nice balance, this ecosystem that are where it's unrealistic to say we would never have pathogenic. We do need some pathogenic, but it's when commensal bacteria is overpopulated is where things are happy. The host is happy, everything, all the systems are working properly. When we have this dysbiosis of the microbiome, so this is when imbalance happens. This is where the pathogenic bacteria is overpopulated. And why does that happen? Well, our modern lifestyle, our Western diet, unfortunately, we're eating more processed foods, saturated fats, and high sugar, low fiber, low, whole foods, and all these, inflammatory foods, all these over processed foods are feeding the pathogenic bacteria. So they're overpopulating, they're getting happy. And what these bacteria do, they release these metabolize. So they're communicating with each other. So these signaling cascades. So they're not just talking to each other, but they're also actually talking to the host. So they're sending all these metabolites, all these signaling molecules that are communicating with different cells in our body. And for example, to use like our immune cells, like T cells. So they actually the microbes, their signaling pathways can regulate and look and kind of like train our immune cells. So they know they can turn on certain T cells and like, for example, T17, which is what's involved in autoimmunity in dry eye. So the pathogen bacteria can turn those cells on. And then the commensal, the beneficial bacteria actually can upregulate the T regulatory cells, Tregs, those control our inflammation. So again, if you have more of this pathogenic bacteria that's overgrown, now we have a lot of these signals going to T17 cells, and that when that's activated, we're turning on the those inflammatory pathways. So again, this is getting like it's
I
oversimplified.
love it though. It really is showing that there's so much more. It's so complex from that standpoint, but you really are making that connection. So what is going on in the gut definitely reflects in the eye, and it's something really important to pay attention to. Because we've talked about this before. There's so many treatments and they're amazing. And I'm from the pharmaceutical side of things. I believe in both nutrition. That's my degree, so this is totally happy place for me. And then from a pharmaceutical side and from a procedure side, there's so many things available. However, if you don't address the systemic issue, how likely are you going to have long-term success with all of those other procedures? I'm curious to see if you're seeing that in your practice too, because you have all of those modalities, but from a someone that's gone through the program we'll talk about too, you know, how is their outcome compared to others?
I think the biggest thing is when patients tell me, I came to you for my eyes and
Mhm.
my eyes feel better, but now also my skin looks better, my energy is better, my sleep is better. So this has been the biggest rewarding, aspect of what I do is how I look at a patient as a whole person and not just eyeballs walking in. So making that connection and making an impact in their overall life is why I love doing this, why I love diving deep into, functional medicine and looking at full like all systems versus looking at just one organ and focusing just on treating the glands or treating the surface.
No, I love that. When someone goes to see you and they come back and they have all these benefits, I think of, because this is me. I have rosacea And so I have ocular rosacea and all the things that are attached to that. A patient, let's say I walked into your clinic, how would that journey look like for me because I'm coming to see someone that also has this background in nutrition? And I'm obviously
Yeah.
struggling with dry
It looks different for every patient. Some patients, I'm in Portland, Oregon. This is granola country. you know, this
eye.
is a lot of patients already may work with a functional medicine doctor. They
Okay.
may have a naturopathic doctor that they have been, managing, working with their practitioner on maybe their gut health. And because again, a lot of these patients do have some history of gut problems. So whether it's IBS, IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, they have gout, they have a GERD, I should say, and they have H. pylori, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So they have all these conditions that have kind of coexisted, but they've thought of it as separate from their skin or their eyes. But if they've gone to the functional medicine doctor and they are now addressing, they're like, okay, you have, bloating, you have gut problem symptoms that may be linked to also why you have rosacea, why your skin is always red, why you look inflamed, and other things. But let's say that a patient comes in and they've never heard any of this. They've never worked with any doctor, and I see quite a bit of those patients that they have like their primary care doctor, who barely has time to listen to any symptoms, and they have a dermatologist. Maybe they go to dermatologist for rosacea, and they've been topicals or maybe doxycycline, and that's it, right? So now they come to me because their eyes are bothering, and they don't even know they have ocular rosacea, even though they know they have facial rosacea. So I make a connection like, hey, you have ocular rosacea, showing them the images of the lids, showing them images of the glands. And now, we may be initiating IPL treatments, we may be doing some immunomodulators. But then I also go through their history. Are there certain foods that you can tolerate? Are there certain symptoms like do you get bloated? Do you have constipation? Do you have certain reactions like food
Mhm.
intolerances? Another thing is allergies. A lot of these patients develop more and more allergies every year. They have not just seasonal allergies, now it's year-round allergies because again their immune system is dysregulated. Their gut
Right.
is off, is this, there's dysbiosis. So there's that. We talk about homeostasis on the ocular surface, but that homeostasis in the gut. So yeah, once we sort of like make that connection, and some patients are like, oh yeah, I've had this gut problems, but my doctor just says take a Prilosec, I have heartburn, I take Prilosec, and I'm like,
Mm.
okay, well that's causing more, it's PPI that's causing more gut dysbiosis, and that's
Yeah.
problems. Oh, you've taken doxycycline multiple rounds, and that's causing dysbiosis, even if your dermatologist says it doesn't, because it's a
Mhm.
dose. But if you're taking it over and over, and, again, I asked about diet, like, what did you have for breakfast today? Because if you just say, how's your diet? 10 out of 10 patients will say, it's good. But when I get specific, what did you have for breakfast today? What'd you have for lunch and dinner yesterday? And then they'll just, then we get into specifics. And then you're like, all right, well, you had cereal with milk and then you were snacking all day. And
Now we
you
get it.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
but another question that I get a lot is like, so what is the perfect diet? And this is where things get, there's the science, there's the evidence, and what we've known from, the TIFAS and now DUCE 3 or TIFAS lifestyle report and DUCE 3 is that well, it's been studied, and we know that what we have the most evidence for is that Mediterranean diet. So again, it's sort of like I hate just saying that because it is one type of thing, but we do have the most evidence that that is the most anti-inflammatory diet, and it's the one that's been shown to be the most beneficial for dry eye. So if you wanted to start with something to talk to your patients about, that's a good place to start, right? So this is it's mostly vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and seafood, and maybe once a week, once or twice a week, dairy and poultry, chicken, and other things. And then rarely, or like a couple of times a month, maybe, every other week or so, of red meats, and then like sweets. Like, not eliminating any food groups, but you are focusing mostly again. And if you're going to eat those like animal products, is that your plate should be mostly, and again, I'm making a blanket statement. This is, Mediterranean diet. I'm just sort of like explaining what it is, but this doesn't mean that every single patient will thrive on this diet, right? So personalizing it is where things get interesting and tricky. But if we're just again talking about what is the evidence that we have right now, like this may change in the next 5, 10 years as we really understand like individualized dysfunctions, and like why does somebody have MGD? Again, you may have MGD because of, maybe certain nutrients are not working for you that may be working for me, or certain dysfunction that's happening in your body that's related to the food consumption that you have. So again, it's hard for me to say, one supplement or one type of diet is going to work for every single patient, because again, when I went back to school, this is what I learned, is that that doesn't exist. Because another reason I went back to school, going back to your original question, was there's so much noise. There's so much information on diet, and so everybody is like either doing these extreme diets, these carnivore diets, this vegan diets, and like my thing was like, well, which one should I tell my patients? What is the evidence? And again, there's no such thing as single one diet, one supplement, one protocol. So individualizing it to a patient and what their nutritional needs are, right? But it's also lifestyle. So going back to the Mediterranean, what's really important about that is not just the foods that on your plate, is how you prepare it, how you eat it, are you eating it with family, or eating it in front of the TV.
And
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Something as simple as just chew your food. Just chew
choose
your
your
food.
being
Yeah.
mindful when you're eating, tasting your food, not rushing
Mm,
through your meal, having that bond with your family, having, again, the best thing is like if you cook together, you sit down, you eat together, you're not rushed, you have plenty of time to chew, to really feel the food, and have that connection with your food, and have the connection with your family.
I
And
love
then
that.
the
Yeah.
thing is, going back to the Mediterranean diet, is also the physical activity. That's also
Mhm.
every single day you should be moving your body. Physical activity is i- in the core of also Mediterranean diet, or Mediterranean
Mhm.
lifestyle, I should say, not diet, right? Lifestyle. So it's like, yes, the foods are important, but we cannot. I feel like our society is so obsessed with like diet, 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 and nutrition. Like, what's the best? Okay, this is the best. I read about this.
So complicated. It doesn't have to be,
Doesn't have
right?
to be, right? Like,
No.
we just need to eat like our grandparents, our
Yeah.
ancestors.
Yeah.
And I mean, like my grandma, she we had every meal we had sauerkraut on the table.
Mhm.
I grew up in
There's your
Azerbaijan.
probiotic.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was part of every meal. Like, it's not, so
Yeah.
my kids they love sauerkraut. We eat it often.
Me too.
Uh and yeah, and the kids, again, my kids, from they understand, they still will make fun of me. Not fun of me, but like when I make their lunch boxes, they're like, "Here goes mom again with the rainbow." Like, I'm like, "You have to have every color." Eat the rainbow.
True.
So they're like, "Okay, mom, you only have 5 colors here." Yesterday colors. I'm like, "Oh, call me out." I'm like, so they're used to it. Like when they're, eating once in a while, if they eat school lunch, I'll ask them like, "How colorful was your meal?" And they'll be like, "Not much." It was brown, bland. they understand. I don't want them to think about good foods and bad foods. It's more like, is it nutritious? Is it gonna
Mhm.
feel, feed your body? Is it going to feel good eating it? But again, looking for those things, like for them to choose something that's more colorful, that has a lot more variety versus a hamburger that's all brown and again, not that to say they don't ever eat that. They eat that. I don't want them to like, but again, it's understanding like, okay, I'm okay to eat this once in a while. I'll eat pizza once in a while, and birthday parties or whatever, like when we go out and with their cousins. But ultimately, understanding like, is this something that's nourishing me at a level that it needs to be, or is it something that I can indulge in once in a while?
Yeah. No, I love that. It's funny too when you say Mediterranean diet, how many times you hear this from patients, even from my friends that'll go away to like Europe and they're like, "Oh, I could eat all the pasta and I felt so good." And, it's really because I think it taps into what you're saying. They're able to tap into their parasympathetic system and like eat with family and slow down. And that's very much that culture. And then on top of that, the food choices are so fresh and colorful. And that matters. I think we lose sight of the simplicity of that too. Even for me, like I'm very mindful of my diet, but I'll look back, like, even this week, I'm like, oh, I really kept it, to 3 or 4 vegetables, and creating more of a diverse, specifically vegetable choices, it helps with so many other nutrients that are coming in too. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I love this about the personalized piece of it, because what works for you may not work for me. And I subscribe to that so much. Um, what type of testing, for instance, through your program, and we can chat a little bit about that too, what type of testing do you think is important for people to do in order to understand things around, their microbiome, potentially how they absorb nutrients? Do you have um, just a little bit more insight on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different companies now that can test your stool, your microbiome
Yep.
composition. And they basically, give you sort of the breakdown of like, here's what you're the ratio of the commensal to pathogenic. Here are the really bad bugs that are really overpopulated. So you may want to go through the problem with a lot of that. It's not a problem, but I think the challenge is that what do we do with that information? You know, we we have that information, great, but are we understanding it to at a level that is going to help us to take that information to do something about it? The support from the company is becoming better and better, where there may, but we have to be also careful, because some companies that are testing, then they're selling you the supplements,
Yeah.
right?
I encountered that. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
here
exactly.
you have got dysbiosis, you have leaky gut. Here you go, take these supplements, you'll get fixed. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that some supplements are not helpful for that, but what we know is that, how do we get to dysbiosis? That's not, by taking probiotics, you're not fixing the root cause of dysbiosis. It's looking at, again, the prebiotics, what's feeding your commensal bacteria, your good bacteria, and that really should come from food. And if it doesn't, you can supplement, but food is the best source, right? So again, going back to, do you have a variety of fiber, polyphenols, all these nutrients that provide prebiotic food for your good bacteria to overpopulate?
mhm,
Are you also taking something that's causing, so going back to that patient that is
mhm.
taking PPI on a daily basis, so that way she can have her pizza and have her hamburger and fries, because otherwise she would get heartburn. But it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if we change how you eat, then you don't have to take PPI, then that you're not causing dysbiosis, then you don't have to do the testing to find out you have dysbiosis, and then you would be sold a probiotic to fix the dysbiosis, but it's not going to fix it because you're still eating that. So
Exactly.
this is this is where I feel like, some. understanding like the whole thing versus
Mm.
focusing on testing. Testing is great. I love testing. I do GI map, I do other like microbiome testing. But again, I'm I don't have to do it even. And like I used to do a lot more. Now I'm looking at, just let me talk to you about your diet. Give me, like, I tell them to give me a diary of their food intake for the last 3 days. Sometimes I go longer, just so I can even like pinpoint. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take like make some modifications here. And some patients again are ready to make drastic changes, and others are like, no, don't take that away from me. So let's just do, and I'm fine with it. Again, it's personalized. I'm not going to give you a list of things that you have to follow to the T, because I don't want them to. Same thing with dry eye treatments, right? Some patients need like baby steps. They need one treatment. They need a lot of encouragement, a lot of support along the way, versus others are like, give me everything you have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's going to be that's the key. Is like testing is great, but you have to understand where the dysfunction is starting, because otherwise they're looking for that magic pill, and we know that that doesn't exist in anything, not just the gut dysbiosis or dry eye. We don't have one thing that's going to fix the dysfunction that happened. So again, I'm cautious with testing because they're also very expensive, right? So they're not insurance, they're 300 plus for testing. So for me to say that every practitioner should do testing, I think is would be disservice to the patient, because then if they don't know what to do with that information, then the patient is left to just take supplements without getting the benefits of the test.
And that's a really good point because I feel like everything is being sold to us, right? Like everything is, you need this test. I'm in that perimenopause phase too. And like how much testing do I actually need to do for all my hormones? I can do it based on symptoms. And to your point around diet too, right? And it just goes back to the basics. Like if, you know, sometimes people just don't even understand, okay, what is a prebiotic? How simple is that? It can be anything from like garlic and onion as your base and a little bit of like leek and asparagus, right? And then it's like your probiotic is what you mentioned, like sauerkraut or fermented foods, and you can get a lot from your diet, which is great. It doesn't cost people a lot of money. I think too, when it comes to making changes, what like lowering that barrier to entry. So like things like I know for me, if I'm meal prepping and I have those healthy options available, and when I'm starving, I have something in a pinch, that's a game changer. So the weeks or the few days that I do that, I'm able to stay on, a pretty consistent diet that's supporting my dry eye as well. Because I find too, as like a dry eye sufferer as well, the second my diet is off or I've had a bout of antibiotics, I feel it in my eyes. It's almost like you would agree too, I'm sure, is it's the window to the rest of your health, really. And so I'm like, oh, I know I need to like sort myself out over here.
I do this all the time. Now that my patients who've been with me for a long time, they say that. They'll come in, they're like, "Oh, I had
Mm,
a flare up, but I know exactly what happened. I went to, on a vacation. I was like eating and drinking
yep,
thing." And, so they know that, they've heard it from me enough that they know what triggers them. They know how to
yep,
mitigate. They know that they have a trigger. They don't go panicking because they know, okay, I had a off, a few days or whatever, but I'm back in my routine, back in my, I can get it back. So it's really refreshing for patients to come and tell me exactly
mm,
what you said. Like they know when they're prepping their meals, when they know what works for them and they're sticking to that protocol, it works. And if they're avoiding certain things that their body doesn't like and they causes inflammation and all those things, so and if they have a flare up, it's almost like a signal, right? Like their eyes are telling him things were off a little bit, and I could feel it.
yeah. There's your gut check right
Yes,
there.
that's it.
Literally. No, I love that. I could talk to you forever about this, and we will do this again for sure. But I wanted to give you some time to talk about the program that you have available for anyone that might be interested, that has dry eye or even just wants a healthier approach to lifestyle changes and what you offer for patients and if it's something that's accessible to everybody as well? Do they have to come see you in person? All that kind of stuff. If you wouldn't mind just walking us through what it looks like.
Yeah. Okay, so when I was going through the my program to become a certified nutrition specialist, was going through with another optometrist, Dr. Celia Fudge. So she's also a certified nutrition specialist.
Mhm.
She's also a fellow of the Ocular Wellness and Nutrition Society. And her and I, as we were going and we had these weekly meetings with our group, or nutritionists, and we would talk. We had to present cases, and a lot of our cases were dry eye patients and dry eye
Mm.
cases. So once we were done with the program, got our certification, we were like, why don't we put together a program that can reach more people, more patients, and can help them? Because we knew that it worked. What we were doing with our one-on-one patients was working and it was effective. So we put together a program that's it's a dry eye nutrition program, and you can find this and other resources for doctors even on ithrivewellness.com. That's our
Perfect.
website. So this program, again, two separate things. One is for patients to kind of work on one. They go through like different modules, and this specific individualized program. But they also work with us. And then the other thing that's been really helpful that I've gotten a lot of great feedback is from our colleagues that do like gut health master class. And
I
this
love that you
is
offer that. That's a
yeah.
lot.
This has been, I think, the biggest thing because so many people want to do this or want to know at least something so they can talk to their patients about that connection, right? So they
Yeah,
have patients that are struggling, that have patients that may be asking them about, you know, gut health or like foods and things like that, but they just don't have the knowledge or the resources. So we've sort of, and that's been a huge help because we want to not only help our patients, but we want to help doctors help their patients. That way we can help more patients at the end of the day.
so
And
amazing.
what you
I
said
love
earlier
that.
was yeah, and what you said earlier was so true. We don't have, I have a lot of patients that are MDs, medical, we work close to a hospital here, my clinic is, and so many physicians still like young doctors that just graduated, they
Mhm.
still don't get any education on nutrition. So for us, it's really up to us
Yeah,
for doctors and practitioners to really further our education on nutrition, lifestyle, because again, dry eye is not just the eyeball problem. It
no.
is a lifestyle problem. It's a lifestyle. And
Mhm.
with that comes all the things that we talked about, nutrition,
Yeah.
sleep, screen usage, makeup, etc.
Yeah.
It's just,
It is, it's all encompassing. I know. Hence why I'm like, it's kind of the perfect timing for these conversations because I think so many people are, they look at a disease isolated and here, like for me with Dry Eye Girlfriend, it's different pillars, it's the nutrition, the beauty, and the lifestyle pillars. And then go see your doctor. The last piece is community. And like having these conversations, I've been so lucky because I was telling you earlier, I've probably seen every talk that you've done on nutrition. And I just really wanted to share that with everybody else because you have so many amazing things to offer. And I'm just so grateful that everyone had the opportunity to learn from you today because this has been such an awesome conversation. I just, again, before we go, I just want to make sure everyone knows where to find you. I'll also link this in the show notes so everybody can find you as well. But you're pretty active on social media from what I can see, which is great. But yeah, if you have a preferred way for people to get in touch with you to learn more about that program, even if there's eye doctors listening too.
yeah. Absolutely. I think again, what you're doing is so amazing, Angela. I think this is, it's much needed. This education, this awareness that you're raising is absolutely critical and so amazing. And I applaud you for what you're doing. I think, a lot and you're going to help so many people by having this podcast. So thank you. And thank you for having me.
Mm. Oh my
And
gosh, of
for attending
course.
my lectures and, for your kind words. So I really appreciate you. But yes, I am, well, I kind of go through phases. I try to limit my screen time. So
Fair enough. Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
my presence on social media is like hit or miss, but that's probably the best place to find me is on Instagram. I Dr. Mila, just all spelled out.
Mhm.
That's my handle, I Dr. Mila, and that's, if you message me there and follow me, I try to do educational posts on whether, again, nutrition, lifestyle, just in general. It's all dry eye. That's pretty much all I do,
Mhm.
and then that's where I will respond probably the quickest. My email inbox, as you know, I'm not the fastest with all the traveling and all the,
It's too
um,
much. I
yeah.
know. There's so many different avenues, so it's hard to keep up for sure. Well, again, thank you. This has been incredible. And I'm so excited. We'll have more and more of these conversations. And I think this will make a big impact on people. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Dry Eye Girlfriend, where beauty, wellness, and science come together to support your eyes and your life. If today's episode helped you feel seen, gave you that aha moment, or just made you feel a little more understood, share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more women find this space and feel less alone on their dry eye journey. Remember, dry eye isn't just something to deal with, it's something you can manage with the right support, smart choices, and a little girlfriend guidance. I'll be back soon with more real talk, expert tips, and conversations that keep your eyes and spirit feeling bright. See you next time.